Hello, everyone. I'm Sharon Chen, anchor with KCTV5. We want to welcome you into another episode of Destination Heartland. Last week, we explored Wamego, and that was our very first Destination Heartland, the Land of Oz. So, again, what we're doing here at KCTV5 is we're launching this new program on KCTV5 Plus called Destination Heartland, and that's when we get to explore all the cool places here in the Heartland. Joining me right now is Christian Mango. He's Director of Communications for Visit St. Joe. And we're talking about St. Joe today, Christian, because obviously it's Chiefs training camp, so near and dear to Chiefs Kingdom. But beyond Chiefs training camp, there is so much to do in St. Joseph.
Yeah, it's hard to believe when people really dive deep into the history of St. Joseph, because at one time, there's numerous old newspaper articles from the Chicago Times and things like that that say that St. Joseph was actually larger of an economy than Kansas City and Omaha combined at one time. And it was really because if you were heading west, whether it was for gold or land, anything, that this was, I'm not going to ever give credit to St. Louis as the whole gateway to the west, because the actual gateway was where the end of, you can say the modern era was at the time, where if you were buying, you needed a horse, you needed buggies, you needed clothes and shovels and things. This was your last chance to get it before you were on your own, once you crossed into what was considered obviously the Wild West of the time. And so St. Joseph just built its history on that idea, at least, of heading west. When everybody wanted to get rich heading west, the ones that actually got rich were the ones that stayed in St. Joseph and sold them all their goods. So,
But there's some key points of history in St. Joseph. One that comes to mind, of course, is the Pony Express.
yeah, it's two ways of looking at it. Some people say, oh, it was such a short-lived business. It was like 18 months and that was it. But it was arguably one of the most important businesses at the time of the Civil War, because it was the top communication tool to get news out west for everything that was happening, all the turmoil that was happening during the Civil War. And so, folks like Abraham Lincoln, he valued St. Joseph enough that he actually came multiple times, never spoke in St. Joseph because it was such a hotbed for politics at that time, but he would come and meet with, say, like the U.S. Marshal's office, which was headquartered at the Patey House, and of course, just the idea of communication needing to be faster, that really started here before. Who knows how long it took to get the mail, but when you could get from St. Joseph to California in 10 days, at that time that was super advanced. And so it was incredibly important just to U.S. history in general.
And it's really cool because in St. Joseph, we can actually see some of that history too for the Pony Express.
Yeah, it's actually amazing how much of it is still alive today, starting with, say, the Patey House. The Patey House was the headquarters, and this image that you're seeing here is the Pony Express stables, which is right down the hill. So the first rider would have ridden out of that location. And here's an example of inside the Patey House where, again, the headquarters were, and they're only a couple blocks from each other. So you can easily envision what it was like when it all first started, and the massive train that's on the inside. It's actually an authentic train that would have brought the mail to St. Joseph to eventually go on what they called the mochila, which is that saddlebag that delivered the mail. So you get that full story, that full picture of exactly how they got the news, essentially at the time, from what you'd say modern U.S. civilization to the Wild West and everybody that chased their fortunes out there.
That is so neat. So many interesting things just about that aspect alone. I mean, I'm a huge history buff, so I love this. But the other aspect of it is that St. Joseph maybe has a little bit of some what you might consider notorious history, which is Jesse James.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we love to say nothing more than, the start of the Pony Express and the end of Jesse James, just because those two things only happened in one location. And what's fascinating, and maybe not necessarily something that's super common knowledge out there, but it was actually the exact same calendar day, about 12 years apart, but April 3rd was the first day of the Pony Express. And then, again, 12 years later, April 3rd was when Jesse James was shot and killed in his home in the same town. So it was basically the anniversary, I guess you'd say, of the Pony Express on the day that he died. And so you can still go inside that house. You can see the bullet hole in the wall. You can get all that Jesse James history, comparing it to the other Jesse James sites, because I know everybody in Kansas City was like, oh, there's the family farm, where he was born, and you can see some jail sites, some places that he robbed and things. How's this much different? This, I would say, is more the history of post Jesse James. Once he's killed, then what happened? And so you get information on the Ford trial, which was essentially the trial of the century. At that time, everybody knew about it. The Buchanan County Courthouse where the trial was held is the same Buchanan County Courthouse that we have today. So the fact that all these buildings and this history is still here, that you can get a sense of exactly what the town was like at that time is actually pretty incredible.
Yeah, that is truly, truly fascinating. And, we talked about so much of the history in town, but it also bleeds out into the nature trails too, which there's a lot of in St. Joseph.
Yeah, it's perfect. We're in a unique situation along the Missouri River where we do have the bluffs, and up there in those bluff areas, naturally it feels like you're in the mountains, and we get that feedback a lot from two places. We get it from our hike and bike community that travels in, and we get it from actually our marathon runners that come for our marathon every September, where they say, I had no idea that St. Joseph was like in the mountains, but we're not. It feels like it just because of the hills and I would say the advanced grades of some of them. I think people assume that, hey, this is the Midwest, it's flat, which may be for the large part true, but where we have our trails, it's absolutely not flat. But you have a variety of skill sets from little kids, beginners, you don't have to be great, all the way to if you're a professional, there's stuff for you. Big jumps, they have a pump track out there. It's actually a really impressive space.
Yeah, we were just looking at some of those pictures and I saw some beautiful lakes too. Talk a little bit about what we were just looking at there.
Yeah, and I didn't see the image of the lake that went across the
Uh
screen.
huh.
Sorry about that, but
Oh,
yeah, we're right off the Missouri River, and so a lot of those views could be of the Missouri River. Actually, a lot of them are of that. We also have the Krug Park area, which has hike and bike trails around it, and they have a really nice pond. That shot right there. Sorry, that's
uh
the
huh.
Missouri River. So that's what you'd be seeing from like our River Bluff um, trails, which right now I would say is our most popular for people who are really serious about mountain biking. It's pretty amazing.
So many awesome sights to see there. And, beyond that, too, there's also a lot of unique, I would say very unique points of interest in St. Joseph, too. Let's, start with the Glore Psychiatric Museum. I'd never seen anything like this before.
Yeah, I hate to call it a hidden gem because it's like, I don't know, 20 or 30,000 square feet. So it's not exactly hidden when you come up on it, but it's the world's largest psychiatric museum. So if you have any interest in just like healthcare, the healthcare system or mental health, specifically how we've treated mental health just as humans and during our existence, it tells the full story of that. And so you might think, well, what does that really mean? It goes all the way back to, say, like the witch trials,
Hmm.
Salem. If you think about it, there were probably mental illnesses at play that people at that time assumed, oh, it's a witch. That was the diagnosis at that
Uh
time.
huh.
And so you get that history, and it moves you forward of how we've learned as people of, no, actually, this is not a great way to treat somebody. We need to keep getting better, keep getting better. And it advances you all the way through the history of how we've treated mental health. And it shows you actually some of the things that they're doing today. And you leave feeling so much better about it because it's everything from like sound treatment and touch things, and it's very peaceful. And you're like, wow, this is okay. I feel better about people in general, that we're actually moving in the right direction when it comes to helping with mental health.
That is so fascinating because, especially right now, mental health is a very important important discussion in society
Yeah.
right now, this day and age, for sure.
Absolutely. And I would say it's the number one museum probably in the region, specifically for young women, especially ones that are
Mm.
entering into either education or nursing fields, that it is incredibly important to them. And so, if that is of any interest to you, you have to absolutely see the Glore Psychiatric Museum.
That is cool. And beyond the Glore Psychiatric Museum, there's something for the kiddos too. And this is a brand new feature too, St. Joseph.
Yeah, Inspire You, a Children's Discovery Center. This is its first full year in operation. They opened just really in December of last year, so it's really taken off just as a 2025 project. But it's huge. I want to say 4 stories plus
Wow.
a rooftop access with climbing all over, all through those floors. And you'll notice on some of these pictures that they're actually local businesses that have tied in to help with these areas. So you have Alltech, you have our local news, from our market in St. Joseph. You've got Mosaic, our healthcare provider up here. They've got a whole section for it, and they're actually the ones that facilitate a lot of this and have put this together. It is a Mosaic property. And so the fact that we have this here in our community that's so tied to, again, our history and our activities and things that make it unique to us, it's still exactly what kids want. I would say perfect for anybody from birth all the way to 10. They have you covered. They have quiet rooms, all abilities and needs that people need. They have them met there, especially going back to Mosaic and the fact that they're a healthcare institute. They take care of everybody. So if anybody ever feels like, I don't know if my kid would feel comfortable there, they would. They've thought of it and they've made accommodations for it.
Oh, that is so awesome. There is so much to talk about in St. Joseph, but Christian, we want to take just a quick break right now. So stay with us. Destination Heartland will be right back. Christian, right before we went to break, we were talking about Inspire You, which is St. Joseph's newest attraction. Now we want to talk about another part of history in St. Joe, near and dear to me, which is we are talking about the legendary journalist Walter Cronkite.
Yeah, it's near and dear to me as well. My background was in journalism, and when I went to Missouri Western, that's what I started studying, and that was all being built there, kind of at the time that I was going, and so it was amazing to see it all come together. But yeah, Walter Cronkite is the greatest journalist, obviously in American history, but possibly world history. That he covered so many huge events, important events, not just again for America, but for the world. Everything from wars to you name it, he covered it during his life, and so that story is told right there at Missouri Western's campus. So on the same site as Chiefs Training Camp, where you can do everything from see his awards and his desk that he worked on to his desk that he anchored from, a replica of his CBS World News desk that you can actually sit behind, get your picture taken, put on the framed glasses that were famous, and get the full experience, and it's free.
That is so awesome. That is really, really cool that you can even sit on the replica desk and wear his glasses too. Um, let's move on because there's still so much to talk about St. Joseph. And one of the things that's really interesting to me too is just the art that is available there too.
Yeah, we have, I would start downtown specifically. We have what's called the Sculpture Walk, which is a basically 24/7, 365 days a year. It's open to everybody, it's free. It's a sculpture walk. And so you can get a map at multiple places. And that's an example right there of one of our past ones. But you can get a map and follow around exactly where they are. And you can even vote for your favorite. Every year the city keeps one. So they have winners every year to it. So it's become kind of a prized thing. But then you also need to check out the Albright Kemper Museum of Art too, which is what you're looking at now, which is, I would say any fan of the Nelson Atkins in Kansas City, this one should be on your bucket list as well. Specializing in, I would say, American artists, and just that kind of Western art. It's incredible to see, and it's actually built on the back of a historic home Not a lot of people realize that. But if anybody remembers the Big Chief tablet writing notebooks, the founder of that, it was his home. So it's kind of a mansion tour that you get inside the museum as well.
That is so cool. And you spoke about the mansions, which I noticed with a lot of the pictures that you sent me. The architecture is amazing in St. Joseph.
Yeah, I think we take it for granted a lot as locals, just because there are so many and we've gotten so used to them. And we have a lot of people that actually just stop and ask the question. They say, I'm just passing through. I don't know much about St. Joseph, but I could tell by the architecture that there's a story here. Can you explain it? And at one time, there were more millionaires per capita in St.
Wow.
Joseph than anywhere else in the US. And again, if you kind of go back to that Western migration history, everybody had to come through here. The ones that made it rich weren't the ones necessarily chasing the gold or the land, but it was the ones selling the shovels, selling the wagons, selling the horses, the mules. And the ones that were selling it right here in St. Joseph because it was basically your last stop before you were in the Wild West. And so that money just made St. Joseph exactly what it was in the 1800s, which was an economic powerhouse at the time. And so a lot of that architecture, thankfully, is still standing.
Yeah, and we're just looking at some of these pictures, going through them, and it's amazing. Not just the mansions, but also that beautiful, beautiful is Missouri Theater, I believe, and the church too. The spires. It's all gorgeous.
Absolutely. Yeah. Missouri Theater, it turns 100 actually here in,
Wow.
I believe, 2027. So it's coming up on its centennial. And there's just not very many Hollywood palaces like that around, but you can get in there today and you can see a musical, you can see a touring act, a number of shows throughout the year. I know, just off the top of my head, Randy Travis is coming as part of his tour later this year. So you can see a wide range of shows in a place like that, which is a pretty amazing experience.
There's I mean, the list for St. Joseph is so amazing to me. I mean, I'm sitting here talking to you and making a list myself saying, wow, all these things to go and see. Because really, it's only an hour north of Kansas City. So just a quick jaunt. One of the questions too was, what is the best time to visit St. Joe?
You know, I guess the easy answer would be right now, and maybe that's because
Yeah.
absolutely everything is open. So all the museums, all the attractions, the things we've talked about, the weather is pretty stable for all things nature and hiking and biking. And then you have Chiefs Training Camp, that's just a huge bonus on top of all that. So there's the absolute full spectrum of possibility open right now. But if you can't make it now, I totally get it. And if you're making plans, especially if you come for training camp and you realize there's more to do here than I originally thought, I should have, maybe planned more time, and you want to plan for a later time. The fall's obviously perfect. We have tons of festivals and events happening. Obviously, when the weather starts to cool down and the leaves change colors, especially again for those nature hikers. But then if you push it a little farther and come back, say Christmas time, the holidays, it's a totally different um, town almost. The downtown goes wild. They have events every Saturday. Krug Park is actually really famous for its holiday lights. It's a looping drive tour basically of all those lights, and so cars line up. Sometimes what feels like a quarter mile line just waiting to get in. You get a free cherry mash at the end, which cherry mash is the candy
Oh,
made in St.
yeah.
Joseph, so you get that full experience. So
That's awesome. Cherry Mash, I have to say, is actually our anchor, Brad Stevens. It's his favorite candy.
there you go. It's
So,
classic.
yeah, it is a classic for sure. For people who are visiting St. Joe, what is the kind of the average time frame that they should plan for? I mean, this it sounds like there's so much more that to do than just in one day.
Yeah, I mean, at minimum, I would say 3 or 4 hours, just because you could see one or two places and not realize that 3 or 4 hours have passed. Even if you just start at, say, the things that everybody knows about, if it's the Pony Express, Jesse James, those things are only a couple blocks away. If you were to start there, there's so much in that space that you'll find yourself easily there in those two locations for for 3 hours, and then you've done enough walking because the Patey House alone, I think, is 40,000 square feet of history. So you're going to be hungry afterwards. So just book a little time to go somewhere unique, somewhere downtown, somewhere local, because I know everybody craves a little bit of that too. When you're away from home, you don't want the same thing that every town has. You want something that's unique, and so you can find that here as well. And so I would say at least start with that. But if you really wanted to see everything, I think you'd realize quickly that you need a day or two actually to see it all.
While there, it truly is a wonderful place that we definitely have to get up there and visit. Is there anything else that we've missed that you want anyone to know about?
The first thing that come to my mind, this is a totally different shift because we've been talking Chiefs training
Uh
camp,
huh. Uh huh.
but Noah Cameron with the Royals, I'm calling it now. That guy's gonna be Rookie of the Year. He's amazing. We love him. We especially love him in St. Joseph. So just speaking from his hometown for the people of St. Joseph, Noah Cameron, you're doing amazing. You're representing us well. Go Royals. Go Chiefs.
I love it. Go Royals, go Chiefs. That's right. Thank you so much for joining me, Christian. And we will definitely get up there and explore St. Joe soon.
Absolutely. We'll see you.
Okay, thank you. And we want to thank you for joining me for another episode of Destination Heartland, which remember, this is a new bonus that we have here on KCTV5 Plus. A new episode drops every Tuesday, so you want to tune in for the next adventure soon. So until then, bye. I'm Sharon Chen for KCTV5 News.